dad was a large animal veterinarian in Wisconsin, and we had a wonderful life growing up. He owned his own practice and was very active, and always had animals around. Years later, he was diagnosed with COPD, which, for those not familiar, is people like to refer to it as emphysema. And at that point, he was not practicing as a veterinarian actively anymore. He was working in management at that time, and he had a struggle for 5 years. And it was probably the hardest thing for all of us in the family to witness, simply because you could progressively see every time we got together how much worse it had gotten. And he started out in the beginning just with oxygen at night, and progressed to being on oxygen all day every day and not wanting to leave the house, and it really limited what he did, and it's all due to smoking.
More than 45 million Americans smoke, making tobacco the leading cause of preventable death in the United States. Tobacco addiction causes 443,000 deaths each year. Approximately 69% of smokers want to quit completely, and approximately 52% of smokers did attempt to quit in 2010. Starting in 2002, the number of former smokers has exceeded the number of current smokers. So we're on the right track. But why is it so hard to quit smoking?
Because it's such an addictive drug. That's really what it is, I think. My dad probably started smoking. He was a teenager back in the 50s. And people didn't know at that time the effects of smoking. And it was kind of, socially acceptable back then. And I think that it was just something that he did and continued to do. And for my dad was a very frugal man. He used to sit down and figure out exactly how much he was spending on his pack or carton of cigarettes, and it used to kill him. I mean, he would be so upset by the amount of money that he was spending, but it was just something that he couldn't live without. It's such an addictive drug. And it probably, has become more so. He tried many, many, many times to quit. Tried everything under the sun, from patches to nicotine gum to antidepressives to, he tried whatever he could. And for whatever reason, it was above his ability to be able to quit.
So why should you quit smoking? We all know the risks. Increased risk of heart disease, increased risk of stroke, increased risk of cancer, and increased risk of many respiratory illnesses. We also all know that smoking causes death. More deaths are caused each year by tobacco use than HIV, illegal drug use, alcohol use, motor vehicle injuries, suicides, and murders combined.
But when we went to sell my parents' house after he passed away, my dad always sat at the same place out in the kitchen, and that kind of became his place to sit. He preferred sitting at the kitchen table, and my parents had a TV in there and everything. So that was within probably 12 feet of the bathroom and 15 feet of the bedroom, and so it wasn't very far for him to go when he had his oxygen and everything. And really he couldn't go very far without being completely worn out at that point. But when we were getting the house ready to sell, my mom said, Kath, we probably ought to wash the walls. And we washed those walls and scrubbed, and you would not believe how yellow those walls were. it was like once we were finished, we were like, wow, that looks like we just painted it. It was amazing. So if that's what it does to walls, I can only imagine what it does to the inside of your body.
Aside from the health risks, there are many other reasons to quit.
And I think for me, I was very angry. I think when he was first diagnosed, I was in nursing school and learning obviously all about health and the things that we need to watch out for and the things that we have control over and don't have control over in our lives. And I was very angry, very, very angry at that point. And that was 5 years before he passed away. And then 3 years later, I was getting married, and the one thing I wanted more than anything was for my dad to walk me down the aisle, and I prayed that he would be able to do that despite being on oxygen and knowing that was a long aisle for him to get up. He had his tux on and he had his oxygen tank around that, and we just took it very slowly, and he made it the whole way, so I was very happy. He did not make it to Gordy's wedding, or my dad missed my brother's wedding by 8 weeks. And he had been a huge part of the planning for that wedding as well, but he did miss it by 8 weeks. A year and a half after not even a year and a half, almost a year and a half after my dad passed away is when we had our first child, Creighton. My dad was always kind of a type A personality. He had a type A personality. And during those last 2 years of his life, I saw the most humble, gracious man that I didn't even know existed. And he talked many times about his desire to quit for my mom, for my brother and I, and his desire that, maybe to have a better life and not be on oxygen and everything, but he knew that was his reality. And I think at that point he had finally come to an understanding that this is the way it's going to be, and I think he knew it was going to be short. He passed away in his sleep, sleeping next to my mom. I was 25 years old. I never expected my dad to be gone when I was 25.
Smoking is tough to give up at any age, but particularly for seniors whose smoking habit and nicotine addiction is decades long. No matter what your age, there is always a dramatic health benefit when you quit smoking, and this is especially true for seniors. The time to quit is now. There are no good reasons to wait any longer.
It's never too late to try. It's never too late to try. And there are so many things available to people now, besides medication, besides, patches. Counseling would have definitely, and I think that's part of my dad's, that's the one piece I don't think my dad ever got, was counseling. Because we all have baggage and barriers and things that we're carrying with us for whatever reason in our lives, and I think counseling would have helped my dad tremendously, but I'm not saying that he would have been okay with doing it. But it's never too late, I think.
You are not alone, and you don't have to quit smoking on your own. When you're ready, there are many resources available. The Can Quit or Quit for Life program is a free program for Kansas residents that can provide you with a variety of resources, including information about smoking cessation medications and over-the-counter nicotine replacement assistance. There are additional resources available from the CDC through smokefree.gov. As you make the decision to quit, your most important ally is your healthcare provider. Visit with your provider today to determine the quit plan that is just right for you.
If you can put yourself even 5, 10, 15 years down the road and think about your family and think about the things that will change within your family growing up, your kids maybe leaving to go to school and then marrying and having children of their own, and the things that you'll really miss when you're not around. I think that more than anything, I wish my kids knew my dad.